So the kingpin was my first success to where I started, having traction, started making some money. And I was thinking, okay, well, I've got to come up with something else. It can't be just, this is before the trucks now. We're kind of going backwards before the trucks. So before I even thought of making trucks, I was thinking, I've got to have another idea. So one day I was sitting in my apartment in Venice, and I was getting stoned.
Oh yeah.
And I was staring at my skate, and I was looking at the mounting bolts, and I was like,
All right. What's up, man?
all right, episode 2.
Episode 2. Let's do this. Dude, I'm like so stoked right now just with all the comments on like the last YouTube channel we put out, even though it sucked and the audio was horrible. But
Yeah.
there's so many people commenting and talking. It kind of got me up this morning, and I like right out of bed, to here, even though it was hard to get here.
Yeah. Well, I found it interesting in the comments that people are, they like the idea of it, but they're also giving suggestions, which is really what we want.
Yeah.
Like we encourage everyone could say, hey, you're great, you're this, but I like hearing the one that got to me. There was a few comments about our bushings.
Yeah.
Which is a really tough thing since I've been doing trucks. And I think this is a problem with a lot of trucks, is that the bushings, the stock bushings, are never always perfect. And that, to me, is something that is a goal of mine, is to one day come up with a bushing that is almost there. You'll never be perfect because everybody's different. So someone weighs 200 pounds is going to need a different bushing than someone who's 100 pounds.
They're going to need a little bit more cushion underneath.
And it's also some people like loose.
Yeah.
There's these different things going on with like loose trucks versus tighter trucks. Also, if you skate vert, you want a tighter, setup with your bushings, maybe a little bit firmer or tighten it up more. But bushings have always been a very challenging thing for me as a truck company, and I think other truck companies as well, because you can't find one bushing for all.
For sure.
And so the comments were saying, hey, the bushings could be improved. That's great. So I encourage our audience to make suggestions, because that's really what one of the goals of this podcast was, to involve skaters to help us create products that they think they want.
Yeah, let us know, because we're open ears. We want to hear
more
what you guys think.
suggestions and feedback and criticism is good,
all about criticism.
that's gonna drive me to keep improving, and I know where the areas I need to improve are. So the bushing is something that I'm going to be focusing on, coming out with better bushings, and I already am working on something that I think is different.
The bush is back.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was there? Something else about bushings I wanted to talk about was
you were showing me kind of a cool like design today, but we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of
maybe next time.
I feel that bushings have a lot of room for innovation.
Yeah,
because they've been kind of the same forever. So
it's like a bushing's a bushing. There's so many people like switching them out though and stuff all the time, because like you said, it never just out of the box the bushing works well. They have to like tinker it and put new bushings in there. I remember I used to put like Cairo. Do you remember those bushings?
Yeah, Kairos are good, and the Powell bushings I think are good.
Okay.
The Powell ones, George Powell seems to really understand good urethane with his wheels and bushings. So I props to Powell for he's like the innovator. And probably, from my experience, the person who's nailed the bushings the best as far as a skate company.
Probably like transferred a lot of his experience with wheels and then put it right into the bushings.
Yeah,
A lot of guys probably aren't thinking about bushings as much, even though it's a huge part of the truck.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's the master of the bushings in the skate industry. He's got some secret urethane formula. I think, going on.
It's a secret. We got some secrets in here too.
Yeah, we're working on that, George.
Yeah, okay, George, we got you. So, last time we were talking about history, GrindKing, all that stuff. Why don't we go a little bit deeper into the kingpin, because that's just such a big part of the story.
Well, a lot of maybe some new generation skaters don't know that GrindKing wasn't a truck company at first. It was just a kingpin that I invented, which was the inverted kingpin.
Did you actually call GrindKing the grinding kingpin company at first, or did
No,
you
no.
I
When I was coming up with trying to find a name for it,
yeah,
I was just thinking, it's grinding, it's a kingpin, it's grinding, and it just sort of like GrindKing, like it was like
popped off.
the light bulb went off, like that's a
Yeah.
great name. So, but it wasn't supposed to be a truck. It wasn't a truck company at that point, and it wasn't until. As I said before, I used to be an indie rider, and I would replace that kingpin in the indie trucks, and that was really kind of what I thought that was it. It's just like a replacement part. But then as I started realizing that skaters were having to do this extra work of knocking the kingpin out and putting it in, it was like, okay, well, why don't I just work on a truck? So the way I started my first truck was to really copy indie. Yeah. I have to be honest, because I like the way they turn. And I tried doing some different geometries, but I just couldn't get that feel.
Yeah.
So I ended up basically copying their geometry and but then I thought, I got to make it better. Somehow I've got to make it better than just the geometry. And so I started thinking, well, these are really heavy. And especially back then, this is like late 80s.
Yeah.
I was going like, these are really heavy. And I was thinking of other sports like in racing, motocross, and
they lighten things
and
up.
Everything is
they
they go like total just into the shaving the of a bolt, even titanium bolts,
the
or
nanosphere of metal
just
or something.
Take weight off of every little part. That's how they do it with race cars, and every little thing they're thinking of the weight, and especially in aircraft, in the aircraft, aerospace,
have to
every bolt and every part has to be. You're trying to take as much weight off, so there's an advantage to, in my opinion, taking weight off of for skateboarding too, because it's a sport where the board is part of what you're doing. It has to be, if it's going in the air, it's flipping, or you're trying to do maneuvers, the less weight I thought would be better.
It's amazing too, because it's like so individual too. It's like I like a kind of a heavier setup just because I mostly skate transitions. So
right. Well, the interesting thing. So when I first made that was kind of my goal, was to make a light indie.
Yeah.
That was in my head. Like, I got to come up with a truck that turns like indie but is much lighter and has that kingpin. So that was my focus, was to create that, and I did, because I experimented with the base plate, and the base plate was curved. Even today, most trucks have like this flat base plate, and the flat base plate from structure. Because I used to, before I got into skate industry, I was doing architecture and civil engineering, working with structural engineers and stuff to design buildings. And one of the things you learn in structural engineering is that, when you have a flat surface, there's not much integrity other than the thickness of the part. So when you look at most base plates, they're flat where the bolts go. There's just this flat thing, and a lot of times they put their name, like Independent or whatever, Thunder. They all put their name on that flat surface. But that is actually the weakest way you can create strength in that base plate.
It doesn't carry as much
load. The integrity, the strength of the base plate or any surface, if you make it sort of corrugated or have a curve in it. A good example would be like your car hood. If you look at every car hood, it's not just a flat piece of metal going across, or it would just sag. It would just bend down.
Yeah, it's always curved.
So you have to add these little ridges and curves. It's not just for styling. It actually adds strength.
Yeah, it also looks awesome.
And it makes it look better. Yeah. So I was thinking, well, with the base plate, if you put the curves out, you could really get the material really thin. And you'll see, if you look at the cross section of especially my earlier base plates, it's so thin that it almost looks like, is that going to be strong enough?
Yeah.
And I pushed the limit on it. I went to
But since you put those curves in and you were able to make it,
I never had a problem with base plates.
Yeah.
Breaking base plates. Yeah. That was never.
Has anybody out there broken a GrindKing base plate?
Yeah. If you have, I'd like to see. To this day, I've never seen anyone break a base plate in half. But I have seen like broken base plates and other, you know, flat ones that have broken because, like I said, it's just that thickness of the metal.
I mean, people in the comments keep saying they still have GrindKings on their original board that they're still riding from way, way back in the day.
Yeah,
I was like telling them, like, send us some pictures. We want to see those old trucks. But you know, I had a thought kind of because like it's almost like how like the phone industry, like iPhones, they were always trying to go smaller or thinner. You know, it's like, and I'm like thinking like, but even before the iPhone was even a thought, you're kind of doing GK1, GK2, GK3, and you had the mindset of always making things a little bit better, right? Like every rendition you did, you were like, "What? How can we up the ante here?"
Yeah, I looked at it kind of like a car company, you know, where it's like, you know, what's new for the 2025s. You know, if now Tesla is an example of a car company that kind of changed that a little bit because Tesla's kind of look the same.
Well, the Cybertruck doesn't follow the curve rule. That thing is flat as hell. It looks like a cockroach on the road.
Yeah, but I think most people generally expect, especially in most, you know, whether it's clothing and designs of cars or most industries, you do expect some sort of change. Even with the iPhone, the changes aren't as dramatic as they used to be. I'm sure that maybe in the near future they'll have a total, complete redesign.
Oh yeah, probably.
But you know, if you notice, like I think the iPhone 16 is the new one.
They added a button.
They added a button. Yeah, there's not much. There's not much reason to go buy one.
Well, it's like the AI. It's the software that's really shifting, and then the phone, the hardware itself isn't really changed that much. They had a camera button. That's about it.
So you know, for me, you know, right now we have the Disruptor truck, which, you know, it's a good truck. But if I come out with a new truck, it's gonna have to be a lot different. Like I'm not gonna
new truck.
Well, you know, yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I should start working on a new truck.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Can't believe we haven't done that.
Yeah, but you know, if I do come up with a new truck, I've got 10 years. Like I was changing it all the time.
Yeah.
Every year, you know, at least every year or two, there was a dramatic change in the truck. It was a new truck.
Yeah.
I haven't changed anything in over 10 years. So if I do come up with a new truck, it can't be a slight change.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to come up with something really, you know,
it won't be called
changer.
the Disruptor, guys, because I keep seeing people not liking that name for some reason. I like Disruptor.
Yeah.
I like disrupting the
industry.
industry.
It was supposed to disrupt it. That was my plan. It was supposed to be, but it didn't really do. It didn't hold up to its name in terms of disrupting the industry. You know. So the new truck has to be like
we got to hold it.
It's going to have to be called the game changer or the revolution. Who knows?
The revolutionary truck.
something different.
Yeah.
So
what was your favorite truck from the lineup of trucks? Like innovation wise, that maybe like you remember.
Well, okay, definitely there's two trucks that I think. Well, there was in terms of what really took off. Because my first truck that I came out with, it had the curved base plate. It was a bit lighter in Indy, and it had, as I remember, what was else? It had the kingpin, so it was kind of a lightweight Indy.
Yeah.
But I had some problems immediately. For one, the biggest problem was it had the old hole pattern, which was this, a lot of people may not know this, but skateboarders had the spacing of the holes were different. They were wider apart. And so one day, so it's almost like I kind of felt like the industry did it on purpose. Because as soon as I came out with my truck, that same year, I believe, they decided to change the hole pattern. And that would be fine in trucks like Indy. Again, going back to the flat, the base plate has a flat, you know, it's just flat on the bottom.
Yeah.
So to change holes on that was easy. You just
not a big deal.
They just did that. They just drilled 6 holes. So the early Indies and Ventures, I think, Thunders and all that stuff, they had, instead of 4 holes, they had 6 holes. So they had the old 4-hole pattern, and then they had this narrower one. So they drilled another set of holes to make a narrower hole pattern, which was like, okay, that's no big deal. But the big deal was, I think it was Paul Schmidt who was like kind of the, and still is the probably the most innovative guy in creating decks.
Okay.
You know, wood decks, and he decided that all the boards would be drilled instead of the 6 holes. He's going to just do the new 4 holes. So when I went to the trade show and I was like, oh my God, like this hole pattern I have, the old hole pattern won't fit these new decks. They're not drilling the hole pattern. So I'm like, it's already obsolete. The brand new truck is obsolete because it doesn't fit the new hole pattern.
Just because you decided to just keep that.
Yeah,
that
so I was
pattern.
all like bummed. I was like, this sucks, man. Like I just, here I am excited with my first truck, and it won't even fit on these boards. They have to
Paul
drill.
Schmidt, man.
Yeah, Paul. Thanks, Paul.
God, Paul.
Paul,
Yeah.
don't do that anymore. Anyway, but it was for most trucks, it wasn't a big deal because they could just re-drill. My trucks had this curved base plate.
Because you were being innovative.
And I couldn't relocate those holes without doing a completely new base plate.
Oh my God.
So that was like, okay, so that's GK1 and that's already toast. So I got to get on the GK2. So the GK2 had the new hole pattern. As I remember, I put the new hole pattern in it. But I had one of the problems I had with the GK1, and this was something that was a problem with a lot of trucks back then, was the axles would slip. Mm-hmm. And so I think the first trucks, actually, the earlier trucks had the axles. They would drill through the hanger and press the axles in.
Okay.
So they weren't casted into the hanger.
Yeah.
So that was, you had to make sure it's tight. But as skaters would ride a lot and the boards would fall on their side and the axle would oftentimes cause the axles to move a little. And then if that happened, then one of your wheels can't turn on the bearing.
Yeah.
So it kind of made it you'd have to hit the skateboard on the side on the axle to get the axle back to where it was so the wheels could spin.
So people just be slamming their board on
Yeah,
and
it was really horrible. It was like terrible because if that happened, all of a sudden it's like my skate doesn't move as
Yeah,
good.
it doesn't feel right.
So that was something I had to figure out because mine had it really bad because I did that and for whatever reason I didn't figure it out right. So it had a bad case of axle slipping problem. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to figure out how do I keep the axle from not slipping. So I had this brilliant idea to have a truck that had a floating axle.
Okay.
So instead of worrying about making it not slip, I just said, well, I'll just let it slip freely.
Floating on the inside of the mold.
Yeah. So it actually the axle could you could just pull it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was no, and then I also had this invention there was no axle threads. It was internal threads. It was really kind of ahead of its time. Maybe one day it'll go back to that, but there was no axle threads on the outside. It was inside, and they had these like small Allen head screws to hold your wheels on.
Okay.
So it was like really cool looking because you didn't see any. It was, tricked out looking because it looked all clean and there's just a little button, like almost like a GrindKing type screw on the end of the axle.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Maybe we'll go back to that.
But there was a problem with that.
Okay.
So the problem with the floating axle was that it rattled like crazy when you skated.
Oh no.
So it'd be like, and you'd be like,
Pissing
it's
off
really
all the
annoying.
dogs.
Yeah, for skaters to have that kind of free floating axle.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I need GrindKing.
You can't rev your engine. on your
GK3 is
skateboard.
coming.
GK3 now. That was
so
GK3.
it's like my second try wasn't, another not great attempt, but it was, innovative and was definitely like a totally different truck.
There's always problems, and then you innovate into the solution, and then you get something cooler, and you keep going and trucking along, and then you get something else.
And that to answer the question, then came the GK3.
GK3s.
And the three's a charm, So that came in when I had that one. I had another new idea was like, okay, here's how I'm gonna solve the axle problem.
Yeah.
I'm gonna cast the axle in instead of pushing it in like like they were pressing them in. I'm gonna cast the axle in.
Okay.
In the mold, in the problem when they pour the mold with the aluminum, it's just gonna form around the axle.
Oh wow.
So when I did that, that was kind of another breakthrough of like, now all trucks do that.
Yeah. Now it's all, that's how
yeah.
they're all made.
Yeah. And so that when I did that, it was okay. I solved the slipping problem. And also I had the new hole pattern, and it was a super light truck. Everything was going for it. Now I had the low kingpin. It was the lightest truck in the industry by far. Like I used to go at the trade show, and I would take an Indy, and I had the scale, like one of those ones like that.
Is that what you had at the booth?
Yeah, I had a scale like, you know,
Yeah.
one of those old fashioned ones that, you know, you put one thing and it goes that way.
One's lower,
Yeah.
the Indy's lower on the
Yeah,
mantle.
so I would show all the customers come by, go, check this out. So I put an Indy on one side, and I put my truck on the other side, you know, and it didn't move, right? It's just like that. And then I take 8 mounting bolts, the whole set of mounting bolts, and I'd put them in there.
Oh.
And it was still lighter with all the
Sounds
mounting bolts.
like
It was just so much lighter. It wouldn't even move with all the mounting bolts. So people were really like, whoa, that's so crazy.
It's like one of those infomercials, you know. Did you make an ad out of that?
No, I just showed that at trade shows.
Yeah.
That was enough to get sales.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, but then it was so funny because that light truck back then, which is like, I think early 90s, it was so light that some of my team riders were like, it's too light.
It's too light.
Yeah, I was just like, too light. I mean, now everyone tries to brag. It's the lightest truck. It's the light. And I was like, you know, it's always frustrating because it's like, Eureka, I've got the lightest truck, everything. Oh, it's too light.
Yeah.
So it's like, I would like, well, just, you could put clay inside. It's a hollow base plate, throw some.
And then later on, they're like, oh, now we want light trucks again.
Yeah,
It
so
goes like this.
It kind of like catches up. Just same thing with the inverted kingpin.
Yeah.
I had the inverted kingpin for about 20. I had that since '88, and it wasn't until recently that trucks have now. It's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, oh, low kingpin, how inverted. Now everyone's catching on.
Wasn't there a point where you were thinking about doing like a normal kingpin truck? I think I was hearing that somewhere. I think I heard that on like on that Shred Shop episode. I don't know if you told me.
I don't know if I went to full normal kingpin because
GrindKing's not normal.
Well, yeah. Well, that was kind of my niche too. You know, that would be admitting defeat. Like, oh, you know, it was a bad idea.
Yeah. You don't want to do that.
I stayed strong with it, you know, and then eventually, you know, like I said, Jay Adams was saying all trucks one day will have that system, and I was like, really?
Well, look at today. Yeah, it's already happening.
Well, to me, that the fact that Indy now does it and other truck companies are jumping on board, you know, back then it would piss me off, but now I'm like kind of like, oh, cool, you know, that it's like a compliment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you're probably looking at it kind of with a slight smirk on your face. It's like, yeah. Feels good, but I told you so.
Yeah, I mean, my patent expired on it, so it's like, hey, everybody cop it, you know, go for it.
Go for it, for sure.
So
how about other innovations?
Well, going back to the kingpin.
Oh yeah, let's get back there.
The first GrindKing kingpin was like super engineered. It wasn't just like the one I have today or everyone else has today. It was it had this like angle thing, and it had the washer. Just the washer was a piece of art. It was all perfectly machined, and it lined up with the top. I mean, it was like an engineering feat. It was like an aircraft part or something. And I made it out of this material called 80. I think it was 8740 or something. Chromoly.
Chromoly 8740.
Yeah, and it was like this super
it
strong
sounds like
steel.
Something out of like a Marvel
It was
movie.
Aircraft material, you know, steel, grade steel.
It's like adamantium or something.
Yeah,
that's a crazy name for metal.
I call it grindanium.
Yeah, grindanium.
That was my official name.
It's from Little L GrindKing's planet.
Yeah,
you
it's
can only
planet
get that.
from the planet Grindamanius.
Grindamanius.
But anyway, so that was like really cool at the time because kingpins were just this grade 8, which is what they are today. Most kingpins are grade 8, which is a strong steel, but not nearly like the 8740 chromoly. And the problem with me putting all that engineering into that kingpin was that it was expensive. So back then, which is like 88, when it came out, I think I was selling them for $12.95. which would be like today, like $20 or something. You know, it's double pretty much almost.
Which is crazy.
So
you were manufacturing everything in the States.
Yeah,
Like
everything was
American-made.
U.S. made.
Yeah.
You know, it was all U.S. made, and it was this fancy material and all machined. You know, the whole thing was machined. It wasn't just stamped like today.
Yeah.
So it was that the drawback to this super strong kingpin was, and cool thing for grinding was that it was $12.95. And I remember one of my friends who I showed it to, he was all like, no one's going to buy it for that price. That's like, no one's going to pay that much money.
$12.95.
Yeah. And you know, in the last episode, I said when I went to the show though, the big moment for me was when the distributor first time he saw it goes, "I'll take 1,000." Yeah. And that's when I went like, oh, whoa, you know, that's a good sign. Yeah. The price didn't faze him.
Can't even buy lunch in LA for $12.95 anymore.
Yeah. So I mean, if today's standard, it would be like that kingpin. I know making it in the USA and making it the way I did, it would probably be like a $25 to $30 kingpin.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's like everything on this table right now they're using this podcast is probably manufactured in China at this point.
Well, you know, there's a lot of interesting things about China because it used to be, oh, made in China, it sucks.
Yeah.
You know, back then that was like the worst case scenario. You have something made in China.
You don't want the tag on there that says made in China.
Yeah, and so by the greed of Americans, probably they kept giving China technology and making all these things, especially technology. They made all the stuff, you know, the high-tech stuff went to China. Mm-hmm. And so the factories that were originally in the USA were from, let's say, originally a lot of the main factories that were built to manufacture things were built in the 20s, 30s, you know, the manufacturing industrial age or whatever it was called. And then when we got to China, the age of going to China, their factories were built in modern times. So they're using technology from, you know, the latest technology to build their factories, the latest equipment.
The new industrial revolution.
Yeah.
They got technology behind them.
And they learned quickly and they learned how to copy. And then their country became super rich overnight almost from that. And so then what happened was China now is, to make something in China, it's better, especially with technology. I mean, an iPhone is, you know, super tech, and a lot of these car parts and a lot of things, even they're now in making, you know, their space program, everything is robots, everything.
It's so amazing how many things have to happen and how many people have to work to just get one product out there, like a phone or a car. It's like all the metals that you have to get from somewhere else, all the parts, everything has to come together, go to the manufacturer and be put together from all of these different people just making that one thing. Which is crazy. Probably back then it was like you could probably do everything in one shop. Most people weren't outsourcing all these different things to get to one product, right?
Well, when I was making trucks in the U.S., everybody was at that point pretty much there was no China truck, really. It's maybe there was some
USA.
Super cheap one that was just like a toy break, you know, it was lousy.
Nobody was probably skating in China.
No, it was like
it was
maybe like a Toys R Us thing or something, but it wasn't like the skate industry. Everything was made in the U.S.
Yeah.
And what happened though was that one by one, I'm probably the last truck company to go to China, and I had no choice because it was either do or die.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to compete? That's one of the reasons why GrindKing went from being a top truck company with a lot of sales to like me scrambling to like figure out how to compete with these other companies, because they were just knocking me off.
Yeah.
And with all the good stuff that I had, all the innovations, they were just knocking me off and just sending China, here, make this. So now I had to like, oh my God, like it's like I have to go to China.
Yeah, it's the only way.
Which kind of sucked, but the thing there was a good and bad too, because I used to make every part at a different place. Like the castings were made one spot, the kingpins were made another spot, the bushings another spot, and then I'd bring it all into my warehouse, and we'd have my assemblers would assemble all of the stuff. And so there was all this production. I had to have a production person specifically to manage production. But
Put all the pieces together.
But when you go to China, you just receive the truck all packaged, done, everything.
Ready to go.
It's ready to go.
Yeah.
It's like, here's what I want, and they just handle everything. So I can see why China, that's just in the truck industry, but every industry kind of like that is like that. China will just, here's your final product, beautiful, packaged, everything.
Yeah.
And cheaper. And unfortunately, the U.S. consumer, they always say, oh, made in USA. But then you make it here, and they're like, well, I'm not paying three times the price for that.
In price.
You got to sell it for this, why is your truck so expensive? So, you kind of just, can't really win. Yeah, I mean, you have to, you got to either do, like I say, do or die. You'll be out of business because everybody wants to save money these days.
Well, and if you're American made, you gotta pay up.
And the quality, fortunately and unfortunately, the quality got better in China than here. Like the trucks I make in China are better quality for less than what I could make here.
So yeah, that made in China tag is actually luxury now.
Yeah,
in a way.
So, the way I wish I could balance that out is maybe selling more trucks to Chinese that are, U.S. designed and get into that market, because the China market has a lot of potential to grow in skateboarding, and it has grown a lot.
How big is skateboarding in China, actually?
It's nowhere near as big as here, but you got to think about it. They have, I think it's like our population is, how many? It's like 200 something million, 300 million.
What's the population of China?
China's like 1 point, like almost 2 billion or something. I mean, there's like, I think 1 out of 3 people in the world is Chinese or something like that, or maybe either Chinese or India. That part of Asia is most of the people. Wow. And so if China's skateboarding goes off, if they really start to get into skateboarding, they may be one day more Chinese skateboarders than American skateboarders.
Yeah, crazy.
So but their culture is quite a bit different. So it may take a little while, but it's already happening. They're already, they're definitely growing. In the skateboard scene in China is definitely, especially in cities like Shanghai where they're more modern. Mm-hmm. You have a lot more of that going on.
There are a lot more street skate spots in Shanghai than if you go to the countryside of China.
Yeah. They're probably a lot more strict though. If you're here, you skate on a building or something, and you just run from the cops.
Get yelled at,
and they may throw you in prison over there. Who knows?
Yeah, it might not be a good idea to skate in China. I'm sure it's been done. There's probably some crazy skate spots. Yeah. But
they definitely, they keep their people in line with a lot more.
Well, it's like Singapore. Like if you do graffiti, they'll cane you, or if you litter.
Yeah, or if you smoke, and if you do drugs in Singapore,
you're done.
Death.
Yeah, it's death penalty. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, so let's not go to Singapore.
Right.
And do anything that we shouldn't be doing. So as far as the kingpin goes, from the kingpin before and then till now, like how much has it changed? Are there still a lot of the things that were on that original kingpin to now, or how has that progressed like over the years to modern day?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because for me, GrindKing really started from that kingpin. So, there was a lot of engineering and a lot of passion, I'd say, of me trying to always kind of keep modifying and improve it. And also I had to figure out a way to cut my costs, because when I went to make trucks, I couldn't put a 1295 kingpin, times 2, because there's 2 trucks. It would make the truck too expensive. So I had to find ways to make a kingpin that did the same thing for a lot less. So that involved me changing from the machined washer to a stamped washer, and at one point I even did a one-piece kingpin. So there was a lot of evolution and changes made along the years. Mm-hmm. And to this day, and in the future, I still have some new ideas that will be incorporated, because part of that is I have to stay ahead of the competition they've copied the kingpin.
Yeah.
So I have to, lead the way in inverted kingpin technology.
For sure. And into other things too.
Yeah.
What happened after the kingpin? What was next?
So the Kingpin was my first success to where I started, having traction. Started making some money. And I was thinking, okay, well, I've got to come up with something else. It can't be just, this is before the trucks now. We're kind of going backwards before the trucks. So before I even thought of making trucks, I was thinking, I've got to have another idea. So one day I was sitting in my apartment in Venice, and I was getting stoned.
Oh yeah.
And I was staring at my skate, and I was looking at the mounting bolts, and I was like, from the grip tape side, and I was like, look, he's just kind of just staring at my bolts for some reason. Also, I saw a line go between the mounting bolts. And
you were just stoned?
Yeah, I was just stoned, but I was just like, spacing out. I was just looking at it, staring. I was like, all of a sudden, I imagined a line between the two bolts. I was like, wait a second. If I connect the two mounting bolts, it's going to hold it. You won't need a tool because one side will hold the other side.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh shit, I got to make a prototype. So I made this, this idea became what's known to be bridge bolts. I don't make them anymore, but back then this was like this new idea that to have a one tool mounting system. So instead of holding, the one side on the screw and screwing it on the other, this idea of having a bridge bolt would be that you'd only need one tool.
Yeah.
So I went to work on making a prototype. My first prototype I remember was like a bar with like two rivet things pointing through, and I tried to test it and it would just fall apart. So I was like, shit, that's not going to work. That's got to be one piece. So I made a one piece one, and it worked, but it wasn't, as I tested it, it kept breaking. So I had to keep engineering it. It took, people think it's a simple idea, which it kind of is because it's just one piece, but a lot of engineering went into the corner part of the bolt. It wasn't until bridge bolt 3 that I nailed it. And then it was just like, this thing
kept breaking, right?
Try and bend that.
All right, I'm gonna actually try to break
You're
this.
stronger than me, so
yeah,
you're a jiu-jitsu master.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu doesn't make me strong, it just makes me broken.
Yeah. Don't break your hands.
Get a hernia.
But anyway, that took a lot of engineering to where it just wouldn't bend.
So it kept breaking when you first made them?
It would always break in the corners, and the trick was I had to put a radius, and I had to thicken. In the middle, it's thinner than it is in the corners.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got to bridge bolt 3, it was just like, okay, these things are rock solid. They're just like indestructible. And
you put a guarantee on that?
And they're guaranteed not to break.
Guaranteed not to break.
And so when I introduced it in the market, they started taking off because everyone was like, oh, this is sick. It's like a new hardware. I've never seen it before. And they also liked them for ollieing because it was like a little you'd catch your foot on it, and they were saying, oh, it's great for ollieing. And they took off. So now I had 2 hits.
That's like interesting though, because they like the ollie. I was watching this dude the other day. I think it was like Mitchy Brusco. Have you ever seen him? Like Skate IQ teaches skateboarding.
Yeah, well, Mitchy Brusco used to ride for Termite.
Oh yeah,
another one of the brands I created.
Shout out
little
Mitchy
kids.
Brusco.
Yeah.
I love that dude's Skate IQ because I've been skating a lot more now. I actually got on a skateboard.
Yeah,
and he was saying that people got it wrong about the ollie because you're actually, you can't think of it as like swiping your foot up the board.
Okay,
that's not what's actually happening. It's the pop. And it's the lifting of your foot up off the floor. It just so happens that your foot scrapes.
Yeah,
but like if you're learning ollies, it's just lifting the foot. It's not actually scraping. And I always thought
it was the scrape. That's why I probably couldn't ollie that great.
Yeah, that's what I always thought. So then I've been trying that lately, and I'm like popping my ollies way higher than I ever have before.
Okay.
So thank you, Mitchy.
Yeah.
Is that his name, Mitchy, or is it Mitch? I think it's Mitch.
Mitchy was when he's younger. I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, but he was on the Termite team?
He was he was the youngest guy on the Termite team, and I remember that was before he had all the big sponsors. Okay. He was just this little termite, you know, and but saw potential in him. So I was his first sponsor.
Okay.
And Termite, actually, we'll talk about that in another episode. But Termite has a very interesting story because, I wanted to turn that into the biggest new I wanted it to be like the new Teenage Ninja Turtles or Pokemon because my idea was to turn it into a TV show.
Yeah, with Gene Simmons, right?
Yeah, there was a story along
That's
that.
a crazy story.
But a lot
I heard that one.
of the termite team,
Yeah.
there were a lot of the young guys like Mitchie that turned out to be.
Was Scheckler on Termite?
No, Scheckler wrote for GrindKing, but he, I don't think he was on Termite.
Okay, he was on.
But
he
there
was
were
on the Almost
there was a
team.
few other guys and girls that were just like they were the hot little kids at that time. You know, before now there's kids that are just killing it.
Dude, it's crazy. I was just watching this kid do like 4 900s in a row.
Wow.
The other day, I was like, "What? How is that even possible?"
I know they're just
they're so light.
yeah, it's amazing.
I fall and I'm like in bed for like 5 days, not able to get out. What was back to bridge bolts?
Back to bridge bolts. So that
went on.
No, it's all good. That the bridge bolts, that was started to take off. So now I had like these 2 inventions that were bringing in money, and the company started to grow. Yeah, that's when I started thinking, well, I should maybe make trucks. That would be my next thing. There was another thing in between too. I had these riser pads that would. Back then we were riding riser pads and pretty thick ones. They were about like 1/2 inch. And one of my inventions that I'm not sure if it was before, it might have been before bridge bolts actually, was this riser pad that would carry the tool for the Allen head. So it was you would carry your skate tool in the riser pad. It would fit in there. It was a slot for it.
I love secret pockets and
skateboarding.
It
was kind of trick, but it wasn't as much of a money maker, I think, because
kind of cool though.
Yeah, there was Cell Blocks was another one that kind of was a hot popular riser pad was this thing called Cell Blocks. And it had this little like ramp thing. So I kind of mimicked that, but it had the tool thing in there.
So you can insert the tool and carry it around with you on your adventures.
But that one that kind of fell off. It wasn't a super big hit. But then the bridge bolts came out and that took off. And so, but the story with the bridge bolt that was sort of an interesting side track to that was that when I had the bolt, I of course Thrasher magazine, I had to put an ad in there to let everyone know this new invention. So I called Thrasher magazine and I said, "Hey, I've got this new product." And they were saying, "What is it?" I got this called a bridge bolt. And I think I even sent them one for a sample. Or I forgot. I was just like, I thought it's going to be like the coolest thing that they could show that was new for skateboarding. And they got back to me like, because I wanted to run an ad. And so they call me back and they go, "Well, we don't have any ad space for you." And I'm thinking like, well, that's weird. It's just a small little ad. It's not even a full page ad. They're like, "Well, we're full." And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of weird. Well, I guess I'll have to wait till the next issue." So the next issue comes out, the very next issue, and there's a knockoff called U-Bolts, which was made by Thrasher magazine. Thrasher is this catalog for Indie, Venture, Thunder, Real, Spitfire. It's like their own products, right? And now they come out with U-Bolts, and I was just going, those motherfuckers, they knocked
flipped
me
it
off.
upside down and then called it U-Bolts.
Within a month, like I didn't even have couldn't get the next ad. The next issue, the one that they tell me they don't have ad space, they run U-Bolts. And I'm just like livid. I'm going like, oh my, these. What, I'm just a little fish. Why do they gotta knock me off?
Industry monopoly right there.
But here it gets worse. So they just took the bridge bolt design and they just did what I did in the first thing, which it broke all the time.
Properly engineered.
They didn't engineer it at all. They just flattened the top and made a bolt.
Well, that wasn't really smart. They didn't really think about like maybe what's special about this.
They didn't test it because remember it was only a month before, so they didn't have this product out on the market. They just took it and just copy it, but they didn't engineer those corners. So
did it quick.
The thing that drove me nuts is that now I had this knockoff product, even though I had I would try and patent my stuff, but what are you gonna do? You're gonna sue Thrasher?
No, it's not gonna happen.
So I just I had to just eat, suck it up. But the part that got me really annoyed was I started getting in the mail broken U-bolts. Because they would just break.
And you got a guarantee on
it.
So they'd be sending it back to you.
They thought that was the bridge bolts, and I'm going, but these are the garbage, knockoffs that,
Yeah.
that's not even my product. So I was just like going, that's really sucks because it's bad enough they knocked me off, but now theirs is breaking and I'm getting them in the mail as guaranteed, replacements.
This is like almost like the startup story of the villain GrindKing for a second. If you were to actually get mad and go back, but
like I say, I have a love-hate with
Yeah.
indie and thrasher because I respect them and I even worship them back before I was in the industry. But then when they started like doing stuff, pulling moves like that, it gave me a little bit of a bad taste that it wasn't a fair playing field.
No, for sure. Are people still using these out there?
Well, okay, so what happened with bridge bolts, they had their run. And what happened was they went from everyone loving them and liking the thing that the ollie or whatever to them. I remember some skater said they feel like my shoelaces are untied because when I put my foot on the deck, they want it flat. They don't want to feel nothing.
Yeah,
And with the bridge bolts, if you had, especially on the front, it wasn't so much on the back, but on the front, your foot would sometimes rest on those bolts.
Yeah, that would bother me, I think, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
'cause you can't feel the bottom of the board when you're riding. Yeah, that's why I like to wear really thin shoes, like just normal Vans, because I want to feel the board.
Yeah, so that sort of made sense, and then they kind of dropped off really quick. Once it became that known for like that, some people didn't like them. It just went from like selling like crazy to like.
Well, let us know in the comments what you think about bridge bolts, and if you're still riding them.
Yeah,
send us a picture on the Instagram. We want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's for I don't know if I'll ever bring it back. I mean, they're more nostalgic. I think I have other ideas and other hardwares that I created that I think works better, including rocket bolts and the other one was we'll talk about it in another thing about all the different hardware iterations because there's a lot of hardware stuff that GrindKing created that were to this day still not available.
We got a lot to talk about.
I need to bring the good ones back.
You know what I want to do with these though? I want to actually find the guy who can break this.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll have one day a bridge bolt who can bend the bridge bolt.
If you can break this, I don't know what the prize is yet. But there's got to be somebody out here who can break a bridge bolt.
Somebody, yeah. Okay.
We'll have you on the podcast.
Yeah. Whoever can bend a bridge bolt challenge will get a free set of trucks.
There you go. Yeah, if you can break a bridge bolt, we'll send you a free set of trucks. Yeah. Why not? I don't think it can happen.
Yeah, not so. U-bolt. I'm not. Don't trucks
cheat.
for U-bolts.
Yeah, don't cheat. You can't go get a thing of U-bolt and then break it. That's not going to get you the trucks.
Yeah, and then there was another company called this other guy kept knocking me off. We're friends now. This Mark he was from Zorlak. Yeah, Zorlak had these. They knocked off my deadbolts, and then they knocked off bridge bolts, and they called them. What did they call them? They call them something else, like traction bolts or something. And then instead of going from the mounting bolts across, like I guess the short distance from the mounting bolts, that's how bridge bolts fit in the two closest holes. Yeah. They went the other way, lengthwise.
Okay.
So they created ones that were to the longer two holes, but they kind of sucked because again they didn't really engineer them very well, and because there was a longer distance where the bridge had to go, they kind of were even more noticeable
on the feet. Yeah, because they were going from bolt to bolt on each
on the other way. Yeah. So they thought that was like their own.
Yeah, you're like missing so much grip tape there too. Like you're like sliding up the top.
Yeah, they had little bumps on the top to like make up for the grip tape.
To mimic the grip tape.
Yeah. So I mean, they were trying to work around my idea to something different.
Yeah, I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't hurt your hands.
Yeah, my hands already hurt all the time. I'm just hurt. Yeah, I tried skating the other day. I woke up in the morning, like didn't even fall, and I was in pain when I woke up. My body's like not used to skateboarding anymore. It's like I'll go train jiu-jitsu every day, and I'm like totally fine. I wake up and I get on a skateboard, and my legs are just jello. I got to get my muscles in my leg back.
Well, skateboarding is a sport where you want to. One of the first things you want to learn is how to fall.
Oh yeah,
because it's like you're gonna fall. If you don't fall skateboarding, you're not doing it right. You gotta fall.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because I was talking to a friend of mine who does judo, and like you have to know how to fall in judo because you get thrown over and over again. He knows how to break fall. It's like a break fall is in judo and jiu-jitsu, and he was riding one of those bird scooters, going super fast. and he hit a car and went flying over the car, and he broke fall, and he thinks it saved his life. Knowing how to break fall literally saved his life.
Yeah, well, I think
Yeah.
it's true because you know, if you know how to just roll, you know, it's basically you're rolling. You don't want to like slam.
No, you got to go for the ninja
The
roll.
harder you fall, if you want to absorb that by just rolling,
keep
yeah.
moving, like
So,
a martial arts movie, like Bruce Lee or something.
Yeah,
yeah.
But as you
Love
get
it.
older, you know, you notice these things more,
Yeah.
like aches and pains.
I know. I'm not even that old. I feel like I just have a lot of like miles on me from doing stupid stuff over the years, probably.
Well, I've had surgery on every limb of my body at least once.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I've got the aches and pains now
Really?
that I'm getting older. It's like you wake up in the morning, so it's like, ow, that hurts.
You got any like metal rods in your
I
body?
had I broke my femur one time snowboarding
Oh, you told me that.
and my
story.
ankle both,
Yeah.
and I had screws in my ankle, and I had a rod that went all the way from my hip to through my femur into yeah, and then they took a year later they took it out.
Okay.
I still have it. It's a titanium rod. It's a souvenir. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. You should take it out one day, turn it into a truck, just melt it down.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Call
A
it.
titanium axle. I can make a titanium. I did make titanium axles too.
Dude, yeah,
Yeah.
I remember titaniums.
Yeah,
I
the
remember
GrindKing
getting a pair of
titaniums.
those. So light, but yeah, it's crazy. Everything's magnesium, titanium now.
Mm-hmm.
Like magnesium, I guess slides better or grinds
Yeah,
better.
yeah. There's some. I think Tenzer is still doing magnesium. I did a magnesium truck way back in the '90s,
Oh wow.
and it was. I actually had the only truck that to this day I think that had a magnesium hanger and base plate and a titanium axle and kingpin. So it was so light that I think I have it. We'll break it out someday, but it is so light that it felt like plastic or something. It was like, I mean, you talk about too light. That was probably too light.
Yeah, your team members, it's too light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. And it's also very expensive because magnesium is an expensive material to work with.
Titanium's a little bit cheaper. Or...
And titanium is expensive to
Oh,
work
it's expensive
with.
too.
Titanium is a metal that is about as strong as steel. Some people think it's stronger. It's not stronger. It's about as strong as a strong steel, but it's way lighter. It's about like aluminum weight with the strength of steel.
Yeah, steel is maybe a little bit more flexible, or is titanium?
And titanium is also brittle.
Okay.
It doesn't bend,
Yeah.
but it'll break.
will
It'll
break.
snap.
Yeah.
And it's good for like aircraft because of the weight and its strength.
But
But
I think
it
my
doesn't-
friend broke a pair of titaniums back in the day.
Yeah,
once.
that's the thing about titanium. It has a strong threshold for strength, but once you pass it, it'll instead of bending like steel, it'll
Yeah.
just break.
kind of pops right off.
Yeah.
Okay.
And magnesium's interesting because it grinds really good. It's softer, so it has a really good grind. But the downside is it's really expensive because it's a material that it's an interesting metal because it's flammable. So when you work with magnesium, the factories that will do it, they have they're dealing with a highly flammable material.
So they got to be really careful.
And here's the thing: a lot of people. This is good to know for people that ever have a magnesium fire for some reason. The worst thing you can do for magnesium is throw water on it.
Okay.
If you throw water on a magnesium fire, like if a fire departments have to know where magnesium is made, because if there's a fire there and they show up and they spray their hose on it, it's just going to
Just
it's
spread.
like putting gas on it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it just almost blows up.
There's probably some crazy people out there already getting ideas on their magnesium trucks, how to light something
Yeah,
on
well, I
fire.
remember when I had my magnesium truck, I was starting to I wanted to have fun with it, so I would like take shavings and I'd put it in like a paper boat I'd make or
Yeah.
something, and I'd set the boat on fire, and I did something where the boat would go out into like a little pond, and then when it hit the water from the fire, it would.
Just explode. Yeah.
So you got to be careful with magnesium.
I could see that. Yeah. Now I want a pair of magnesium truck. The pyro in me a little bit is like, sounds fun.
Maybe when I break out the magnesium truck at some point, we'll take some shavings and I'll show you how.
How about
that
some
lights up.
sparks on the magnesium trucks?
Yeah. Well,
Trail of fire.
There are spark trucks available.
There are. Yeah. Your
GrindKing
GrindKing.com.
sparks. Yeah.
GrindKing sparks. They're pretty cool. They look awesome at night when you're grinding.
Yeah, the spark trucks are really cool at night. If you've never seen one, if you definitely break out the camera at night because it just the trails and stuff, you can get some spectacular footage.
So you heard us there. Yeah, get some spark trucks. Show us your best footage. Throw it on our Instagram. We'll repost it. We want to see the best spark, the longest spark at night. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
and a couple.
And just out of a kind of a weird fact of the GrindKing like original sticker, the logo has on the L GrindKing, he's grinding in that pool on the original sticker.
Yeah.
If you look closely at the skateboard grinding, because he's grinding on coping, there's sparks. I have like these spark things coming off, and that was long before I even thought of the spark.
The spark trucks,
but it was kind of
I see it right now. Actually. Yeah, it's right behind you.
It's kind of like it was a premonition to one day there would be trucks that spark.
You're before your time, Donald. Everything you're talking about is like things coming out now, and you're like, hey, I did that already in the 90s. Now it's 2024.
Well, the best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come. Yeah. We keep hinting at nothing. Yeah. Yeah, nothing going on. Let us know what we should do. What should GrindKing do next? I don't know. Yeah.
Nothing to see here.
Top secret. Yeah. Always top secret. All right. I think we got a lot more to talk about. We could probably push it to a next episode, right?
Yeah. Well, there's going to be a lot to talk about, so we can save some.
Well, hit like or subscribe. Help us out. We want to keep doing this channel. We want to keep talking to you guys. We want to hear you in the comments. Anything.
Yes, your comment exactly. Your comments are going to help shape the future of GrindKing.
For sure. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on TikTok. All the socials. Go to grindking.com. Get some swag. Team GrindKing, let's go. Yeah, I'm excited for this podcast. We're going to continue doing it every week. Let us know what you want to hear, who you want to see. Maybe we're going to have some guests on eventually. So let us know.
Yeah, and if you haven't joined Team GrindKing, anyone can join, and if you join, you get 30% off your first order of anything you want on the site. So
for sure, just hit that landing page. Give us your email, and we're not going to email you that much.
Oh, we have a contest too. We're going to be doing contests.
Oh, we do have a contest.
Yeah. So
well, we have a bridge bolt contest, which I don't think anybody will win.
Yeah.
That's one.
Yeah, that one's no one can win that. Yeah. Maybe we'll see. But
I don't think so.
But the one you can win will be. This is our first contest. We're going to do more contests, but the first one that is for today is that whoever comments first on what FTWG stands for will win a free set of trucks.
F the world G.
Well, don't. Why'd you tell him?
What do you mean?
No.
I thought is that it? No.
FTWG.
FTWG. What does that mean? I don't know.
Whoever guesses first.
First comment.
Yeah.
Go.
Okay.
All right, man. I'll see you next time.
Yep.